Welcome to Horsemanship Journal TV, inspiration for the thoughtful equestrian.
Hi, this is Kate McLaughlin, editor of Western Horse UK and Horsemanship Journal. Today I'm with the wonderful Hanna Walton. Hanna has a series coming up in the next few issues about a horse called Riley, who she is rehabbing. So we're going to have a chat about the mental, emotional and physical journey of this horse and how Hanna plans to take him forward and through the challenges that they might meet. Morning, Hanna. How are you?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm happy to be inside today. It's -8 or something like that at the minute here.
Good grief. Yeah, we've really had a cold snap, haven't we? Which, you know, as horse owners, we all absolutely love because, I mean, on one hand, the mud is frozen, but that's about the only upside.
That is the only silver lining. I think it's literally just survival here.
So I'm really excited. The first part of your series is in the upcoming February issue. Really excited to have that come out. And you're on the cover.
Yeah.
Also very exciting.
Handsome
pair.
I'm so excited. Thank you very much.
That's okay. So tell us more about Riley and kind of where you're going to go with him and your approach to bringing a horse through a rehabilitation process.
Yeah. I thought with Riley, it's a really good opportunity to sort of share right from the start how we prioritize things here, what emphasis I place on different parts of his training. And the nice thing about him is we don't know how it's going to go. He has been with me since now a good couple of months, and the goal is to go back to eventing, but it might not work. You know, he might not be able to do that. And, you know, for us and for me in particular, it's more, he won't do that if he can't do it with his dignity intact and feeling emotionally confident and feeling, you know, you don't really want to say enjoy because you're not sure how much can you say that they enjoy something or not, but the feeling that he feels confident, happy and relaxed whilst doing the exercises and activities that he needs to do to become a successful event horse. And we don't know whether he'll get there, but I thought that's what's nice about this series. You know, we'll see it right from the beginning, and hopefully then everyone can follow his progress and see.
I was just about to say, we're coming along with you for the ride, quite literally. So, you know, there's no sort of predetermined outcome for this, which is really engaging for our readers because obviously they'll become invested in Riley's story. So yeah, it's super exciting. And like you say, we're maintaining the dignity of the horse. I think we can all tell when our horses particularly enjoy something. I mean, Archie definitely lets me know if he's happy doing something or if he isn't.
You know that feeling at the end of your ride, don't you? If you get off and feel like, oh, that was as good for me as it was for them, that's the feeling that we all want. More, you know, for us and, you know, the readers, it's more important, I would say, for all of us, that feeling than the feeling of being able to go off and win or do something and achieve the goal. It's, you know, that's great as well, but it's the icing on the cake. The relationship is so much more important. So that's sort of what's going to be on emphasis first.
The partnership is definitely key, isn't it?
Yeah. So I met Riley through Jodie Ryson. She basically started to work with him and his owner, Jane O'Reilly, who's absolutely lovely and completely invested in this. She's owned the horse since he was a yearling. Actually, no, she bred him. She bred him, so it's a homebred horse. So he means a huge amount to her. She's still got his mother. She sent me pictures of her, which is nice. And Riley, he's really nicely bred. He's bred specifically to event, and her dream was to have a horse that she could see go to Burghley or somewhere amazing like that. So go the full way. So she really invested in it right from the beginning. She looked at different event riders, and as a 4-year-old, he went off to go to. He went to 4 different event yards, and this is not about. You know, for me, it's really important to say it's not about knocking traditional event yards or professional event environments. It's just that for this particular horse, and I think for a lot of slightly more introverted horses, sometimes the setup and the sometimes the goal focused approach is too stressful for the horse for it to be able to cope and to realize its potential in that environment. So I think Riley's a classic example of that. I started chatting to Jodie about him, or she started talking to me about him and said, oh, I've got this horse and, you know, we're starting to do a little bit of rehab. He came away from the event yards and had a year at home to sort of just let down in the field and be a horse and be out and get hairy and just have a nice time and just reset a little bit. And then Jodie started working with him and said, look, I think, you know, he's actually showing that he can develop a little bit, and he can, sorry, not develop a little bit, he's showing that he can and wants to continue. And he's making such big steps in progress that I think actually it's ready for the next bit. He's ready to start kind of going back into the world of eventing, or the world of you know, slightly more pressure, and see how he handles it. So that's how I came to know about Riley. And then on getting to know his owner more, she shared with me about his story. He basically, from the age of 4, was with different event riders until the age of 8. He had, we're not quite sure what had happened first, but we know that he fractured his cannon bone in the field, and that wasn't spotted straight away. He ended up going home after that fracture and recovering for a little while, and then going back to a different event yard where we thought the owner thought he'd get on a little bit better, and he, whilst at that yard, developed, which they didn't know at the time, ulcers. They found out he had grade 4 ulcers, but at the same time as having grade 4 ulcers, he had also got kissing spines. So we don't quite know which came first, the ulcers or the kissing spine. It might have been it's a bit chicken and egg. But we do know that at his first cross-country schooling and at his first competition, he would have had grade 4 ulcers and kissing spine. So the fact that he still does it and still, tried is pretty amazing. What a generous horse, because he must have been in a huge amount of pain.
No, absolutely.
And he had kissing spine surgery. He was given the all clear from the vet. After being scoped for ulcers, he had lots of different treatment for his ulcers. He is still on ulcer treatment. He was again scoped before coming to me, and he's clear as far as we understand and know. We work with an amazing company, Ron Fields Nutrition, and they help him and help me make sure that you're kind of looking after his insides, and he's on a special diet, and we don't, he's got ad lib hay, and we feed him before he's exercised, and we're careful about increasing the supplements that he's on if it's frosty or if it's wet or if there's higher, when the grass is stressed, so from frost or cold or wet or all the normal things that we have in this country.
So he's a real multifaceted case, isn't he? I mean, he's quite an extreme case in some ways. I mean, not on an individual level with his issues, but as a sum of those parts, he's not straightforward. When it comes to management, etc. And a lot of people have horses like that, and they end up with horses like that. We think we're getting one thing, and then the layers come off, and that's not necessarily, as Riley's showing, because he was homebred. It's not necessarily because of some of their experience. Sometimes it's just a culmination of what is.
Yes, and I think for him, he when he had his fractured leg, he was on box rest for quite a long time. And box rest for a lot of horses is just the beginning of the end, because especially if they're on a busy yard. And I know from his behaviour here, the stable behaviour is really challenging at times. It's getting better and better, but we have to be really, really careful about how we manage the space and the energy in the space. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later. But one of the things that quite often happens, and I see it a lot because we have horses that come here, if they've had a period of box rest, they, from a veterinary perspective, they have to stay in a stable, but from a mindset and emotional, the horse doesn't understand why they've got to stay in a stable, and
Well,
friends
it's like us in
leaving.
well, it's like us in lockdown, isn't it? I mean, I think now more than ever, owners can relate to horses on box rest, because we've basically been on box rest for for an additional sort of 6 months than we thought we were going to be. A year later, we're still here. So definitely.
And at least for us, we've got slightly unclear messaging, but some sort of like clarity in why we're on box rest, but they don't know, they're just it's so hard for them. And I think, if they're on box rest in a busy yard where routines can quite often be set that are helpful for the humans and not necessarily for the horses, then it's even more difficult, because horses are leaving to go out and do their work or go into the fields, and the horse is staying in, and sometimes there's not a buddy left in with them, or even if the buddy's left in, it's not it's not enough, or plus the fact that they've got all this energy that they don't know what to do with. And so for him, I think maybe that was a cause of the ulcers, but you just don't know. But so you're right, he's a complicated case, and it's definitely multifaceted and layered, and there's different, it's like anything, isn't it, when you start dealing with sort of difficult horses or past behavior, you go right back, and you start unraveling this sort of ball of string, or peeling back the layers of this onion, and slowly start to see more and more of kind of maybe where the behavior started, or another facet of why the horse is behaving in the way that it is. And so it has to be a whole, the approach has to be from the way he's handled, to the energy in the space, to the way he's warmed up, to the way he's tacked, to even we don't tie, he wouldn't be tied on the yard to be tacked up because it's too much for him. But it would be really easy on a busy yard to go, you'll be all right, he's fine. And then it just slowly spirals, and behaviors start to build again. So he came with those physical sort of known issues, if you like, but he also came, one of the event riders who he was with in his later stages actually contacted his owner and said, I want you to come and look at this horse, because I really have never seen anything like it. And she said that they would have to hold him down to tack him up. He would spin and canter in his stable. The rider would stand at the mounting block, because as soon as you open the door, he'd canter out of the stable. The rider would leap on as he passed the mounting block, and then the rider would promptly refuse to move and start to rear or back up or plant. And to get him into the arena, they had to reverse him all the way down to the arena.
Holy moly!
In the arena, they were so worried about how spooky he was that they actually got his eyes tested, because they thought he was partially sighted or blind, or had some sort of strange reaction to different colours in the arena or something like that. At one point, they thought that he had a reaction to the colour blue, because he was so spooky with blue objects. So there was a lot going on.
Wow, yeah.
And they were genuinely worried about him and wanted to try and make progress, but just didn't have the strategy to figure out how. So it's really, it really is he came, and we thought, well, I would love to help him, because for me, one of my biggest passions in, horses and life is helping horses who just maybe they've either gone down the wrong road, or haven't had quite the start that they should have had or could have had, and through not anyone's fault, but maybe lack of understanding, or lack of time, or lack of facility, or education, or whatever it is, that horse has been let down. And so for me, Riley has been let down by humanity, and I want to help him realize that actually we're not a bad bunch, and he might be able to be the horse that actually is in there on the inside. And if he can't, and if he's not meant to event, then that's fine. The goal is that he's happy, relaxed, and confident. And if we achieve that, brilliant. If he achieves that whilst jumping around some nice courses on an event, then we'll all be cheering him on as well. So that's kind of where we're at the start of the journey. So I guess now the first bit is talking about where we begin.
I was going to say, it's quite a big pie to start taking chunks out of, isn't it? It's quite, it's, if you look at it as a whole, it's quite, whoa, okay, overwhelming. But so where do you begin? Where do you start?
So for me, one of the most important things for any horse is that they can be in a learning frame of mind before they start to learn. And so if they are not relaxed and unconfident, or don't feel safe in the space, then they can't learn, because there's adrenaline or fear or skepticism. So then it's difficult for them to be able to get into the frame of mind where learning. So you know what it's like as a person, you know, if we're stressed out, it's really,
you just shut down.
Depending on how you are as an individual, it's really then hard to process information, and you might take in a bit, but you might forget it quickly, or, you know, feel a bit stressed by the experience of it. So a lot of the first, this is where for me a lot of it doesn't look like at all like horse training, and it's the most important bit that I think is missed so frequently in normal setups. It was all about him just being able to land here, and not just land here physically, because he was here physically, but mentally and emotionally he was all over the place. You know, he was high-headed in his stable, he was stressy in the field, he was frozen in the field, he couldn't interact with other horses. If something moved, he was looking, and, you know, he just couldn't relax at all.
Excuse the cat.
Hello.
Nothing like live interviews, is there?
So the first bit, in answer to your question, where do we begin? It's about, for me, helping him find relaxation, and that's where it doesn't look at all like horse training. Really, it looks like him hanging out with me in different spaces. Like, he became my teaching buddy. So people come here to have lessons, and I would just take him down to the arena, and he would just stand at the end of the line on the halter and just chill out. And at first that was really difficult for him. We couldn't do it if a client was here, because I'd need to focus on helping him be still and calm, or he'd be spooking or trying to run through us or running away or getting relaxed and then getting really up. And so we did a lot of just going into different spaces and stopping and resting. I played a game that I call Grandma's Footsteps all the time with the horses when they first arrive. So I'll walk into the space, if it's the arena, for example, and I'll walk, and then I'll look at the horse, I'll turn and I'll stop. And if the horse doesn't stop when I stop, I'll just ask them to go back a couple of steps. So they start to learn to mirror my body language and listen and be observant of, oh, we're walking now, the herd's moving, and now the herd has stopped, and so you stop. And if the horse just looks or gets scared of something, then I might just go and reassure the horse and just ask the horse to lower its head a little bit to help it to find a place in its body and posture that endorphins can get released, and adrenaline isn't, disappears, and the horse starts to find a place of relaxation in each space. And soon they need less and less help. So quite often, I might go into the arena and do that for 2 minutes, and then the horse is already like, oh, we're just moving around and mooching around, and we're just having undemanding time together. And for him, it was almost a case of neutralizing all of the spaces and taking away any preconceived ideas that he had about, oh, we're in this, we're in the stable and there's tack on the door, right, that means something's going to happen. We're going to the arena and there's jumps in the arena, oh my god, something's going to happen. It's just about going, whatever has happened, whatever your preconceived ideas are about my actions or this space, I'm just going to allow them to dissolve and do the opposite of what you think I'm going to do. So if you think we're going near that jump to jump it, we're probably just going to sit on it or hang out by it until you just don't. You might get curious about it, you might start to investigate it, and then we might just leave. Or if you're scared of that corner of the arena, we probably won't go and put you in that corner of the arena, because I want to build trust and rapport. And it soon might be that gradually we get a little bit closer, and then, oh, guess what, there might be a treat on the floor near that corner of the arena, and then we might get that and we might leave. So it's just changing perceptions. The first time he got a treat off the floor in the arena, I think he was like, what is happening? This is not normal. And the first time he got curious had like a blue barrel on the floor or something, and he just looked at it and sort of tried to touch it rather than be spooking away from it and snorting like a dragon at it. And then we left the arena and took him out to do some hand grazing, and his expression's like, oh my God. So slowly he starts to believe that actually we're not going to put him in situations, we're not going to do what he expects us to do, basically. And that's, you know, I've just talked about the arena, but it's so important that feeling is all over the space. So whether it's catching him in from the field or turning him out or on the yards, there was a lot of negative associations with people around the stable and people in the stable. He would look quite dominant. You know, you'd be forgiven at thinking that he was quite a dominant horse. So, for example, if somebody walked past his stable quickly, he might rush at the door and pin ears at the stable. But it's more that it's just defensive in his case. He's worried about high energy coming in, and just as he's starting to relax, then if the act of somebody walking past the door quickly with a high purposeful energy happened, then it was enough to cause him to go, shit, I'm not all right. And then his reaction to, oh, I'm not all right, is whoa, and freeze. And then if he feels trapped, get a little bit dominant. Or explode. Or if he can't run, then, you know, potentially freeze and then go into fight. And he'd never, you know, he hasn't, there's been sort of, he's never kicked or bitten or anything like that, but you could see that he would threaten to do things like that. So you know, all of the staff that we have here and everyone that came into the space, even if I had clients that had horses in with me at the time, I gave them all coaching on how to move around the space and around his stable. And we all used the project of helping Riley change his perception to kind of get everybody involved in the process. So that same, you know, act of walking past his stable, if somebody just arced around the stable with a grounded, slow energy, then he'd be able to look out of the stable and just look with his ears forward rather than being surprised and kind of feel attacked. So it's just little things like that. Like, I ask people when they come into the space to just take a breath and ground their energy, and when they move around the space, not to try really hard to move without just rushing, and to think about what they're doing. And when the horses look over the doors at each person that's moving around the space, I want people to connect with those horses, because, you know, if their horse is looking at you with ears forward, then and you're just blasting through, getting on with your own job and being all busy, but the horse isn't going to connect to you so well when you ask it to in the arena. So it's like, how can we facilitate that all the time and think about that all the time? And things like feed time, you know, he was quite defensive about feeding, so we took it all really slowly and helped him to start to understand that he had a habit of people would go near him to feed and he'd start spinning in the stable. So we were, and sort of turn his bottom on us. So we'd halter him up, and before the feed even came near, we'd help him to get in a calm, soft, relaxed mindset with the halter on, and then the food would come, and we'd teach him to be calm and respectful at feed time, and then he was allowed to eat, rather than just feeding the undesirable, rewarding the undesirable behavior.
The thing is, he's gotten such a habit of defending himself, hasn't he, and protecting himself. He sounds like he's got quite a strong sense of dignity as well. He wants to protect that.
High. But he's a, you know, which often comes with, he's a pretty quick learner, and so he's you know, they're always trying to find the path of least resistance, really, aren't they? So, you know, if he gets a reward or a release by acting like that, then that's what he knows, and that's really where the next stage comes in, the next part of the training. So if we think the first part of the training is all about just landing in the space and getting into a learning frame of mind, then the next part of the training is almost about actively unlearning, because it feels to me like he knows less than nothing. You know, if it was a scale of like, you know, say if I think between number 0 and 10 and 5, well actually he knew about -5 at the beginning, so I kind of want to get him up to the point where he
get to 0.
Yeah, like we get back to square one, and then learning, because he's confident, so he can start to unlearn, and then he starts to learn, oh, actually what I thought I should do is maybe not what I actually need to do. So then he's starting to learn positive responses to behaviour. So we get more or less undesirable behaviour and more you know, connecting and positive behaviour. So that's sort of that's what I'll write about in the second article. Active unlearning and dealing with trauma in that as well, because there's a lot of pain memory associated with things like ulcers. There's a lot of behavioural things that come. You know, I've had a lot of horses here. It seems to be, I don't know whether it's that ulcer cases are rising or we're getting better at spotting horses with ulcers, but you know, this year alone we've had 6 ulcer cases come through the barn where the horse is clear of ulcers, but they're still demonstrating the behaviour that they had when the owner recognised they had ulcers. So it might be that the horse is pushy into the leg or finds it in particular difficult to bend off the right leg. It might be that the horse is tight or tense or spooky, or you know, if it's a jumping horse, it might be that the horse is starting to refuse jumps because the acid starts to swirl around and the horse doesn't know that they actually are fine now.
Now they're anticipating that pain, aren't they? And again, it goes back to them protecting themselves. It's like us, if we know something's gonna hurt, you brace, you have that brace and you have that reaction. So it's like you say, it's that unraveling and that unpeeling and relearning that actually this isn't going to hurt.
And that's all the way from, you know, in particular with the ulcer horses, from the saddling process to moving them around, to touch, to grooming, to moving them around with your hands when you do groundwork, to then girthing them up and then getting your leg on and helping them understand the inside leg. Like we had a dressage horse come this summer who he would, because he had grade 4 ulcers and then was scope clear and he had back check, saddle check, the right nutrition, so all the bases covered, but he was still rearing and exploding when you put your right leg on. And I don't know, no, I want to look into it more, but for me, I know that the intestines sit a little bit more to the right side. So what I'm finding, which is really interesting, is the ulcer case horses tend to find it harder to bend off the right leg. So this horse had a big explosive reaction. He was 17-2, really nicely bred dressage horses, pretty athletic. When you put your inside leg on, he just can't handle it. So the process we used was just for me to help him to overcome that on the ground first, and then in the saddle to be able to keep the leg on until he released a little bit from the pressure, and then yes, guess what, it's done. I'm not going to react to your explosive behavior. I'm just going to sit here and be still and, you know, try not to fall off and stay calm until you soften, and then yes, good job, well done. And then slowly it builds, and you really feel them go, oh, actually it didn't hurt anymore. Wow. And usually they breath and blow out.
I was going to say, and how much of that, because obviously you deal with each horse as an individual and as a whole, like you say, taking into consideration all parts of them as a being. How much goes into unlearning for their owners and riders? Because obviously you're riding an explosive horse or a spooky horse, our self-preservation kicks in, doesn't it? And we can trigger that. We can unwittingly trigger that behavior.
Of course. It's a really good question. We've changed our model even just in the year that we've been here. At the beginning, I would do a lot of the training of the horses, and then the owners would come at the end and do a bit of a handover. But now we really get the owners involved all the way through. So if a horse comes in and it's like retraining or restarting, or, you know, if it's an issue like that where you know that there's 2 people in this, isn't it? It's the whole of
it's a partnership.
And so, you know, there's no point me getting the horse to the point where actually it's completely fine, and then the owner feeling like, well, I'm still terrified of that horse because last time I rode it reared and explosively bucked and nearly decked me when I put my right leg on. So understandably, you're going to feel worried or nervous or tight or have muscle memory. So what we do is get the owners and clients come here, and they watch a lot of the sessions. They do a lot of the sessions. They learn the strategies on the ground. They ride with me. They might ride horses that aren't, if it's like a muscle memory, they might ride horses that aren't going to do that, to help them to remember, oh, actually, horses aren't generally
and breathe and enjoy it. I'm pretty sure we're all sadomasochists, we're like, we love these animals, but we're terrified.
Exactly. And then
it's about giving them
back together.
It's giving them the toolbox, isn't it? It's equipping the owner with the toolbox, because there's one thing, isn't there? There's training horses, and then I think people underestimate how much people training actually goes into being a horse trainer. But it's so rewarding, isn't it? And I can't wait to see, whatever Riley's outcome is. I just know it's going to be an absolutely amazing journey for him and you. I mean,
it's really exciting. I'm he's now, what is really lovely to see is just by doing that first bit, allowing him to land in the space and allowing him to start to grow in confidence and relaxation, and self-confidence. He's changed so much in his behavior and his way of being. We find, so he started to, in the first, I would say 4 weeks, I don't know if he slept at all. He just was high-headed and tense under here, and I know, poor little guy. And his stable looked a mess, and we never saw him lie down. And there must have been I think there was a moment for him in the school actually, where I was just hanging out while I was teaching a lesson, and then I felt his energy change behind me, sorry. And he just was standing there with his leg cocked behind me, and his head started to drop, and then I heard this huge sigh, just like and then he started yawning, and he yawned.
Oh, don't, you'll start me yawn.
And he yawned, and then he started pawing the ground, and then he rolled. And then the next day I went down to get him from the field, and he was asleep on the hay.
So just a huge release for him. Oh my goodness.
And that's one of the pictures that is in the magazine. That's the first time we saw Riley laying down. So I sent it to his owner, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Look, he's lying down. And he let me go over there and sit with him and feed him treats on the hay, and now we see him lying down all the time. He's always asleep. It's great.
He's got a lot to make up for, hasn't he? He's got years of missed sleep.
That's it. Yes, it's so. I mean, no one. We'll all get it. How great that horse. I'm like, yes, he's sleeping. This is the best day ever. For other people, it's like, God, I jumped a meter 40, or whoa, we won this cool competition. I sent my horse to sleep. Brilliant. But we know that then actually now we're starting to make progress, because now he's starting to relax and starting to feel confident. So then from that place, then
you can start thinking.
Can start to happen. Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be exciting, and I feel really lucky to be able to share it with everyone. So thank you for
it's amazing. No, thank you for sharing it with us, and maybe we can do another video chat soon. And catch up. Good, maybe you can introduce the boy himself on a video. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hanna. It's a pleasure as always talking to you. And when the lockdown and pandemic has eased off a bit, Archie and I will be over for for a session. So you can all look forward to me making a prat of myself again. There we go.
No, we can't wait to have you here. We just finished off doing our we've got a new website coming, and we finished off. We were in two minds whether, because with lockdown and everything, do you go ahead and make plans, or do you go, oh God, let's wait?
It's tough, isn't it? It's really tough.
And we just thought, you know what, if we don't make plans, then we're going to plan like everything's going to go ahead, and then hopefully the universe will help, and some of it at least will get to go ahead. So we just finished off our clinic schedule for the year, so I'm really excited to share that.
Fantastic.
Hopefully, we'll see lots of different people.
Yeah, so check it out. And yeah, no, that'd be
Exactly.
brilliant. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
we will see you real soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Take care. Bye.
I'm driving down an empty freeway.